Maybe you can see now why my energy level was so down after the win against the Washington Wizards. When you're struggling to beat the worst team in all of basketball, and you constantly see Steve Kerr actively making it harder for his team to win any given basketball game, you see no hope. There is no reason to be excited. And obviously, with Steph Curry spraining that ankle in that Wizards game in the final minute, on top of the sprained thumb that he's already dealing with, there never really was any hope of the Warriors actually having any shot of beating the Celtics. Even though the Celtics have been struggling themselves, they're actually 3-4 in their last 7 games coming into this game. But it doesn't matter. You can leave it to Steve Kerr and the Warriors to give any and all team the momentum they need to get out of whatever funk any given team is in. You know, it's so funny to me. Some people watch that Wizards game and they somehow think that it's a coincidence that a team like that is suddenly going off from the 3-point line when they normally can't hit the side of a barn. And they think it's a coincidence when the Celtics suddenly look like the best 3-point shooting team in the league, even though they've been struggling and they've been one of the worst 3-point shooting teams over the last month or so. And especially when the Warriors announced who they were starting against the Celtics in this game, that's when you knew immediately that they had no shot in hell of really or truly competing in this one. Because Steve Kerr decided that it's a good idea to start GP2 at the 3 next to Dennis Schroeder and Steph Curry. Dennis Schroeder and Steph Curry, the smallest starting backcourt in the league, and then you decide to put in another 6'2" guy next to them. Suddenly everybody can get exposed. Steph Curry to begin the game, and he played really good defense to be fair to him, but he's already stuck on switches against Kristaps Porzingis, Jaylen Brown. I mean, he's stuck against anybody and everybody, and it's so easy for the Celtics to exploit this situation. They can literally go to any number of guys. They can target Dennis Schroeder, they can target Steph Curry, and they can target even GP2, who at the end of the day, again, is just 6'2". The Warriors got away with it in the first quarter. But the second half of games, this is where such lack of size is going to start wearing on you. The other team is going to get going in the second half of games. Next thing you know, the Celtics have 43 points in that third quarter, and the game was over in the blink of an eye. And honestly, given how small the Warriors were to begin the game, they competed. That starting lineup only ended up being a -2, which is affordable. But then Buddy Hield came into the game and proceeded to destroy all and every momentum the Warriors had. Buddy Hield gets fouled on a 3-point shot and only hits 1 of 3 from the free throw line. Following possession down, they run a split action just for Buddy Hield. He is wide open and he bricks it. And then the next possession comes and Buddy Hield is once again dancing around with the ball, is in an ISO situation one-on-one, and then he turns the ball over. You know, Steph Curry took a seat with 3.5 minutes remaining in that first quarter. The Warriors turned to a Buddy Hield-centric offense and managed to score 1 point in the final 3.5 minutes of the game. 1 point. And ultimately, that's where the separation was created. The Celtics got out to a 29-18 lead in that first quarter. And basically, the Warriors offense never recovered from there. As usual, they have everybody playing out of position. Steve Kerr, after a relatively pathetic win against the Wizards, boasting about how Moses Moody should be playing the 4 spot. Yeah, Moses Moody has one affordable game against literally the worst team in the league, and suddenly he likes Moses Moody at the 4. And yeah, like I always say about Andrew Wiggins, he's best suited to play the small forward position. Do not overextend his abilities by forcing him to the 4, taking away his size advantage at the 3, taking away his POA ability, and forcing him to be more of a power forward, be more of a rebounder, and all these things that he's not good at. But Wiggins was a 4 basically the entire game, and he had an atrocious game. 1 of 11 from the field, 4 points, -29. Leave it to Steve Kerr to completely and utterly find a way to ruin Andrew Wiggins and whatever momentum he was on the last 3 games. Leave it to Steve Kerr to make the game incredibly difficult for soon-to-be 37-year-old Steph Curry, playing next to 2 tiny guys, forcing him to play defense like he's in a playoff situation. Again, it is Steve Kerr's job to make it as easy as possible for Steph Curry from a defensive standpoint. Obviously, that can never be when you put Dennis Schroeder next to him, and especially now you put GP2 next to him on top of that. Literally, the Warriors have a size disadvantage at every single position, and Steve Kerr somehow thinks that this is okay and somehow that it doesn't matter. Do you know why I talk about GE Santos and the need for the Warriors to put him at the power forward spot? It's not because GE Santos is some kind of all-world talent. It's because he fills a positional need. It is literally simple as that. Putting GE Santos at the 4 at least allows you to put Wiggins in his position where he belongs, and that alone prevents these nonsensical 3-guard lineups and 3-forward lineups beat 3-guard lineups all day and night. That is why I advocate for GE Santos, who is on the roster, and with all kinds of bodies out, he's really the only one that can suitably play that power forward spot. And even for him, he's better off as a spot 4 rather than a permanent 4. But again, that's the situation that the Warriors are dealing with because Slo-Mo is out, Draymond is out, Kuminga is out, but again, he's not a 4 anyway. And for the last 3 years, the Warriors have been a broken team because Steve Kerr has not realized that a lack of power forward in any of his lineups outside of the starting lineup with Draymond in there as a 4, his team is broken. Literally, they had Otto Porter Jr., they lost him, and then the following year, they had no power forward coming off their bench. That's why they used Anthony Lamb, because he's the only one who was close to being able to play that position. Kuminga was in his second year, and he was not suited to play that position. But then ultimately they end up doing that anyway. Next thing you know, the Warriors go into the playoffs without an actual power forward coming off their bench. And then they were screwed. Literally, they decided Jonathan Kuminga shouldn't be in rotation, took him out. Anthony Lamb was out of the rotation. Next thing you know, you have GP2 and Moses Moody playing power forward minutes. Same thing last season, putting Jonathan Kuminga at the 4. You probably just could have used Dario Saric at the 4, but instead, of course, Steve Kerr finds a way to overextend that guy and put him at the center spot instead of the power forward spot. And they're using some combination of Wiggins or Jonathan Kuminga at the 4, and it just doesn't work. The Warriors can never find real consistency outside of when they use just Draymond at the 4, putting Trace next to him at the 5. And then, of course, there's this season where they actually had Slo-Mo, but even when he was available, Steve Kerr somehow, some way or another, found a way to refuse to use the one guy that he could use at the power forward spot. This is really the greatest reason why the Warriors can't hold up for all 48 minutes because of the lack of size and their lack of understanding or realization of how important that power forward position actually and truly is. And you can see how much of a joke it is to hear Steve Kerr, once again, talking about how he thinks Moses Moody is their viable power forward moving forward. Did you guys know that before last season started, he was talking to Brandon Podziemski, and he told Brandon Podziemski that he could play positions 1 through 4 before that season started? Yeah, that actually happened. Steve Kerr put into Pods' brain that he could be a 4 in the NBA. The guy is completely and utterly out of his mind. You know, there's really nothing sadder than knowing that the Warriors are going to lose a game before it even starts as soon as you see the starting lineup that's being put out there. And I can't emphasize enough, man. And it's game after game after game at this point. Buddy Hield is trash. Buddy Hield is garbage. Buddy Hield is not a playable player for any team that is trying to be competitive. This guy is a joke. Mike Dunleavy now looks like a clown for ever signing this guy. And now he has some correcting to do. He has to get Buddy Hield off this team, off this roster at all costs before the deadline. Because as long as he's on this roster, Steve Kerr, the charlatan, will find a way to play this guy. And he will play him over anybody else that should be in rotation because they have way more suitable size. And as long as he can space the floor, Steve Kerr will always value Buddy Hield no matter what. Do I think getting rid of Buddy Hield is going to make a difference for the Warriors in a big way? Probably not, as long as Steve Kerr is still around. But at least the fan base doesn't have to be subjected to having to watch this guy play the game of basketball because he is absolutely awful. No matter who's coaching the Warriors, we the fans deserve better than Buddy Hield at the end of the day. But yeah, just another disgusting loss, a 40-point loss to the Celtics. And now you see why I was so agitated after that win against the Wizards, because if that's how you're going to play the worst team in basketball, then you're going to suffer the consequences against better teams. And tonight was the perfect example of that. You can pretty much bet the farm that the Warriors are going to get destroyed when they have to play the Kings in their next game. As long as Steve Kerr exists for the Warriors, the 3-guard lineups, the 4-guard lineups, and players playing out of position at the 4 is never, ever going to stop. And as long as that stuff never stops, it is all over for Steph Curry and the Warriors. It doesn't matter if it's the next game. It doesn't matter if it's for the rest of this season. It doesn't matter if it's for next season as well. The Warriors are never going to be a serious team ever again as long as Steve Kerr is still on this roster. That is their greatest problem. That is their single greatest problem. As long as he's on this roster, the Warriors are forever done. And of course, that is why Steve Kerr needs to be out of here. Steph Curry gave lip about how the fans should shut up and let them figure out how to win this season without realizing the exact same thing that happened last season is repeating this season. And the Warriors fans are suffering watching these garbage games. And he's got the nerve to tell the fan base to shut up. I really hate to say this, but Steph Curry is a lot dumber than I ever thought he was. We, the fans, are the base that makes you who you are. If the fan base is collectively against what you're doing, maybe you should think and consider the possibility that you might be on the wrong side of the argument here. Everybody and their moms know that your stupid small lineups with you playing the shooting guard spot with two other tiny guys next to you is never a viable way to win. We've seen it over the last 3 years, including when Jordan Poole was on the team. And somehow you still haven't figured that out? You still okay these stupid lineups that can never make your team look serious in any kind of way with any consistency whatsoever, and you just let it happen day in and day out and never consider the possibility that, hey, maybe this is a stupid idea. You know, Jerry West, once upon a time, wanted to trade Monte Ellis off this team because a small backcourt lineup of you and Monte Ellis was never going to work, was never going to allow you to be a serious team. And the Warriors are back to square one, basically back to those days when the Warriors were a bottom team in the league. Except Steve Kerr has found a way to put even another tiny guy around Dennis Schroeder and Steph Curry, two of the smallest guys in the backcourt in the NBA. Use your brain, brother, because you're following Steve Kerr's broken brain right now, and now your brain is broken too. But yeah, at this point, I have very little hope that this brain-broken organization, top to bottom, the players' brains are also clearly broken. And as I always say, as long as this stuff continues to happen, there's just no hope. Not at all. I don't even know why we bother tuning into this crap at this point. But unfortunately, the fight lives on for me. As long as Steve Kerr is on this team, I am going to fight to get this guy out of here. That's all I got for now. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.